it's me, Renee. I'm back. And today, as you can see in the title, I decided to kind of walk over to kind of go through the Rory Gilmore Reading list, kind of talk about or react to it. React is a bit weird. Okay, yeah, I'm going to talk about the books that I've read, the books that I haven't read, and the books that I'm interested in and not interested in. So yeah, I like I've been a kind of Gilmore Girls for a long time, but like I have never really kind of gone all the way to like thinking I want to read all the books on this list. Honestly, I never really taken a good look on this list before now. But I thought, hey, it's a Gilmore Girls readathon. Isn't this kind of a fun little video to do? Though little, this might take some time because it's quite a long list. Sorry. But on the other hand, I mean, I feel like this list is kind of, at least for me, it's kind of in three parts. You have the books that I've read, the books that I haven't read, and the books that I haven't read and aren't and I'm not interested in reading. So like if a book I'm not interested in reading and I haven't really heard about it, or like if I know thoughts about it, I won't really talk much about it. I'll just kind of move on. But if there's a book I kind of have some thoughts on, I'll talk about it. But yeah, and that's kind of it really. So let's see how this goes. And also, I suppose maybe this will be interesting, maybe it will be uninteresting, but I'm gonna try to make it interesting. And yeah, sorry. For some reason, I'm a bit hiccupy, but yeah. So yeah, number first is 1984 by George Orwell. I've heard about this, of course. I'm gonna say, well, people might not have heard it, but I think it's a pretty well-known book. Is it a book I'm planning to read? Not immediately, but like never say never. You never know what happens in the future. But it's not a book I've read so far. Is it a book like I would say that it's one of those books that I know from like the being part of it's kind of part of the zeitgeist. But it's not really a book that I've like I yeah, I haven't really like read it for school. As I said, I haven't read it. As well as some books you kind of have to read and you don't read for school. Like you kind of shoot and then yeah. And have I watched any of the movies? Because I think it's probably been adapted because most of the classics have been adapted somehow. I don't really think I have. I do know like what the basis of it because I like it's part of the zeitgeist. But yeah, honestly, I'm not quite sure it's my type of book. But yeah. And then next we have The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. I've read both of those. I read one of them. Did we read the whole book? Yeah, we read the whole book for did English. I did a year of English studies, so I read Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn. No, I read Huckleberry Finn. I think I read one of those, but I read the other one. Like I've read both. Like I'm just kind of thinking which one I read during that year. Anyway, I really enjoy them. Like I've seen adaptations of both of them. I really enjoy them both. Is it like an all-time favorite? No, but it's like a book that I have fond memories of. Well, it's books that I have fond memories of. And yeah, I don't really have that much more to add here. Next up is Alice Adventures in Wonderland and by Lewis Carroll. Of course, I've heard about this book. I had, but like when I took a little bit of look of this list yesterday, and I kind of thought, there's quite a lot of books here that I heard about, but I have not read. And yeah, Alice in Wonderland, one of those. I've watched a lot of the adaptations of it. Of course, I know the story of it. I've read parts of it for university. Like I read the Jabberwocky, which is from Alice in Wonderland. But I don't really think I ever read the whole Alice of Wonderland. On like not that I can remember anyway. Like I suppose I when I'm thinking about it, I might have had one edition of it in my childhood home, but I can't really remember like reading it a lot. So I don't think it was like a book I read a lot. Maybe I just read parts of it because it's a big book. Anyway, yeah. But yeah, I do have nieces now, nieces and nephews. So I'm thinking it might be a fun book to read to them in a few years. and I suppose fun for me also to like read all of it. And yeah. And then we have All the President's Men by Carl Bernstein and so I'd say, and Bob Woodward. And I've heard about this one as well. It's kind of like, people say like it's kind of like a classic classic non-fiction story about U.S. Presidency and U.S. politics. So that sounds interesting. And I actually think my dad actually has a Norwegian version of it in his house. So I suppose I could read it. But yeah, it's not a book I've read so far. Is it a book I'm planning on reading soon? No. Is it a book I've never read? No, I'll probably read it sometime. I just don't really have a date for it. Like it's not like in immediate future. And then number 6, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. Never heard of it, so I don't really have any thoughts about it. I think Michael Chabon is the dude, the author who wrote Jurassic Park, which maybe I'll read that book, but this one I'm not that interested in. And then number 7, An American Tragedy. Never heard of it, so don't really have any thoughts. Number 8, and then number 9, and then number 9 by Agatha Christie. Yes, I've read this one. I liked it, though I would say it's kind of like other Agatha Christie books more. I suppose it's like, and then number 9 is kind of one of her most thriller books, while she has other books that kind of mystery based. And yeah, I kind of prefer like books that are more mystery than thriller based. So yeah, but it's a good book. I don't have anything against the book. I just don't love it myself personally. Um, Angela's Ashes I read when I was actually in Chile. Well, I read like a shortened version of it for school, but yeah, I read it and I enjoyed it. I think maybe I also listened to it in Norwegian on audiobook. Maybe I read it twice. Yeah, I remember liking it. It's not like a book that is kind of like life changing, but it's an enjoyable read. So yeah. Anna Karenina. I have not read this one, and I don't really think I ever will. Like this is kind of honestly like this is kind of among those books that I know it's a book, and I'm pretty sure I've seen at least one adaptation of it, but I don't really plan to read the book because I mean it's a Russian classic, and those Russian classics are like often like huge books, and like they're all the characters have 1,000 nicknames, and a lot of the nicknames are the same name. Like everyone's called Vlad or Leo, or so it's kind of like Leo T and Leo, and all they all have some similar names. So like am I ever gonna read those books like in book form? I don't think so. Am I gonna try them in audiobook form? I don't think so either. So yeah, that's kind of a pass for me. Then we have next The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. So yeah, her diary. Or The Diary of Anne Frank, which is more commonly not what it's known as. It's kind of a big book, like in a like if you talk about books that are important in the world history and stuff, this I would say it's one of those books where you kind of think, oh yeah, very important book. And like I don't know, a friend of mine she read when she was 12, and I think like some people read it when they're around 12 and stuff. As it was, that was the time when Anne Frank wrote it. Well, she was 12, 13, 14, like yeah, around that age. I never read it before I was like 27, I think, yeah, 27. And when I read it, I thought it was good, but didn't think it was amazing. I kind of thought it was overhyped. Some friends might have like, "What? You can't talk badly about a book that's non-fiction diary." It has to be. You can't like critique your diary, but like, I kind of felt like it could, and I don't know. I felt it was overhyped. So yeah, that's my opinion on that one. Hard to take, but yeah. Then we have some books that I have no interest in reading at all, and I'm just gonna move on. Blah 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 blah. No interest in reading any of these, so I'm just gonna move on to like be quicker about it. Number 18, Atonement. Again, I watched the movie, haven't read the book. Not sure I really like want to read a book. No, it's kind of like the rule that like book lovers always have to read a book before they watch a movie. That was for me like if it, like I suppose it kind of like differs. Like sometimes I see like a movie and feel like, oh, it looks cool. And I watch a movie, and then afterwards I see like, oh, this doesn't look like I didn't know it going in. And of course, then you can't really read the book first. So that happens. And then sometimes also like they're like sometimes when I think like that book doesn't interest me. But like if a movie that's based on the book has like a great like a cast, or if it's like loosely based, or like I mean sometimes it kind of might be like book that or story I think like be very better cooler to see visually than to read, and so then I won't really bother reading the book. So yeah, that happens, and yeah. So yeah, A Tournament by Ian McEwan. I don't really have any really eagerness to read that book. Really, can't really say I have. Yeah. Beloved by Toni Morrison. I can't wait to read that one. I I was supposed to read Toni Morrison last year for Pokemon, and it just life happened. But I yeah can't wait to read. But I wasn't Beloved, but it was a book by her. So yeah. And then a book that I haven't heard about before this, but so Bitch in Praise of Difficult Woman by Elizabeth Virgil. Sounds very cool. I mean, it sounds like a feminist nonfiction book, if I'm not mistaken there. I might be mistaken. I haven't heard about it before, like I saw this list, but yeah, that sounds interesting. So that will I'll probably pick up. Then yeah, the Canterbury Tales. I read parts of them for my school. Yeah, so that I did 1 year of English for school, university. And yep, I read parts of the Canterbury Tales. And I remember we watched like part of an adaptation of it. But, like I never read the whole of it. Will I read like the all of the Canterbury Tales sometime in the future? Again, never say never. It's not really a book series that or books that like prioritize reading, but never say never. Never. I might like maybe in next year I'll get a big interest in reading it. Who knows? The Catcher in the Rye. Yeah, I also read this one from for English that year, and yeah, I didn't really like it that much. I didn't really get the hype around it. It was just kind of overrated, weird book or uninteresting book. I mean, I didn't really feel like anything happened with it in it. So yeah. Blah 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 blah. Then we have Cinderella by Brothers Grimm. So I remember like when I was young, or when I was a kid, well, not like when I was young, like I'm old now, but like when I was a kid, and we had this. Well, of course, we had lots of books with fairy tales, but we also have like small box of like fairy tales with like these big editions, so you can just kind of read them yourself with just kind of one story for each book. And I really love that box. It has, I think it had both Anderson books, like H.C. Anderson stories, but also like Grimm stories and different stories really. Uh, but yeah, if Cinderella was part of that box, that I can't really quite remember. And honestly, yeah, I can't really quite remember Cinderella from my childhood. I'm thinking I probably read it sometime, but I don't really have an like very fixed memory of it. So yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, will I read it like for my nieces and nephews in the future? Yeah, I probably will. I mean, that's gonna be fun. I mean, yeah, I suppose will I read it? I mean, Cinderella, as I love uh, fairy tales, have like lots of different versions. But I think, yeah, I think maybe I'll read one or two versions for them. It'll be fun. Like, I suppose I probably won't like read the most grotesque ones. Like in one version of Cinderella, the sisters actually cut off their feet to like have space in the shoes. So yeah, I mean that's a bit grotesque, but like the kind of ones, yeah, I might do that. Give me a moment, and let's see next then. Yeah, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Again, I remember watching a lot of the adaptations of this one, but I don't think I've ever read the book. I don't think I have. So yeah, that's interesting. I suppose I love books, at least for me. I kind of like think like, oh, I read it, and then I think about it like, have I read it? Have I just seen the movie? So yeah. Um, and then A Comedy of Errors by William Shakespeare. Like I read Hamlet by Shakespeare, and that's the only one I read really. Also, I'm like, I'm not really sure I kind of want to read Shakespeare because it's a play. It's meant to be seen. It's not really meant to be read. Like, yeah, I kind of want to watch more Shakespeare plays, but to read them, like I tried a few years ago to like, I went to the library and I got some Shakespeare. I kind of wanted to read them, and then I kind of quickly thought like, well, it's just kind of weird, like reading this like, I mean, yeah, it's kind of reading a dialogue of, well, that's also kind of issue where like, uh, my daughter, my princess. I mean, it's just so weird dialogue. Like it's so old fashioned and all that. But then also like when it's a play, you also kind of have to read like the stage directions, like exit spear or like exit man, and I don't know. I mean, yeah, reading just reading purely reading a play. For me, that's just kind of weird, at least in my mind. So yeah, don't really think I'll do it. Blah 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 blah. A Confederacy of Dunces by John Candy Toole. This one I've heard quite a lot about. It's kind of been on, well, quite a lot. It's been like on different lists of like funniest books ever and stuff like that. And a library close to me just have it, so I kind of want to read it. But I also like have heard someone says like it's kind of like a bit difficult to understand because it's a bit like deep or like very satirized and maybe it's a bit complex. So yeah, I'm a bit scared of it in a way, I think. But I mean, it's been on my radar. So yeah, blah blah blah. A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court by Mark Twain. This one definitely on my radar. I really really want to read it. I mean, it just sounds like so cool. I mean, it's a time travel, and it's about a New Yorker or Yankee who goes to King Arthur's court. Which just, I mean, just the concept sounds so cool. But also, it's also Mark Twain, which I really like. I remember him. Yeah, really, I really like his writing style. I also do think I actually got this book, Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, from my sister like 10 years ago, for my birthday one year. So I think I actually own it. I do think it might be a black board to like use. So I think it's like an old version. So it's kind of like a word. It's translated, but it's like a version that's old Norwegian, or old Norwegian, but older than today. So yeah, but yeah, I'm curious about it. I'm curious about it. And then we have The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. This one I remember watching like the adaptation when I was young. Probably seen more adaptations, I think. At least I said one adaptation of it. And then I read it 2 3 years ago for like a book club, and I enjoyed it. But like I think I kind of talked about people and I talked about, well, do you remember this new chapter? I was like, what, that chapter? And then turns out I read the redacted version and not the like long like the original version. The original was like 600 pages, and one I read was like 400. So like they took away 200 pages and a whole subplot, which happens, I suppose. I suppose I kind of want to read like the original version, but like I liked it, but like it was kind of long in a way. I feel like it's kind of like it's good, but it kind of feels like a book that's kind of best as a movie. That's weird because I don't know. I just kind of didn't love the writing style of Alexander Dumas, at least how I remember it. But yeah, and then we have The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. I read this one for my high school English class, and yeah, I quite enjoyed it. It was actually quite one of the first books I read with a protagonist that had autism, and yeah, it was an interesting, good read. I quite enjoyed it. I mean, I haven't read it in ages, 10 years or so now, but I did enjoy it, and I remember, yeah, enjoying it when I read it. So yeah, maybe I'll read it again. Maybe, I don't know. Then we have Cyrano de Bergerac by Edmond Rostand. So this is kind of French classic. I remember watching the movie in French class. Yes, I took French in middle school. Do I remember French now? No, not really. Well, I remember parts of language. Like, I can't really say I have the same language, the same fluency in French as I do in Spanish or English. But yeah, um, I remember watching the movies around under the Bergerac, and I kind of also there's been a new version that came out last year. With like the that's actually from Game of Thrones, and yeah, a lot of other people. It's a musical version. That one I really want to watch. But yeah, I haven't read this one, but like I really like the concept of it. I mean, there are these like this guy who kind of wants to be with together with a beautiful woman, but he's too shy, so he helps another guy. So it's kind of like a love triangle ish in a way, and yeah, I suppose it's kind of like the original catcalling, catcalling, not catcalling, original catfishing. So I mean, eh, optics is not perfect, but I feel like it's kind of like at least I can forgive it because it's just a kind of lovely, nice story in my head. So yeah, let's move on. Yeah, number 70. I mean, not further than that, but yeah, it's a long list. But yeah, skipped subtitles here and there, of course, obviously. But yeah, number 70, The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. So I don't remember when they talked about this one in Game of Thrones, but yeah, anyway. Um, it was huge back in the day, so yeah. I remember when it came out, like it was all over news. Everyone talked about it, like this was the book that would change Christendom and all that stuff. I mean, it didn't really. I mean, this church still has a high standing and whatnot, even though like Dan Brown supposedly, uh, like he did research from the book, so it's not like it's made out of nothing. There are points in like Jesus, the idea of Jesus having a wife and like daughter and all this stuff. It's supposedly right, which I don't know. My personally, I don't really care if he had a wife or not. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, the Da Vinci Code. I read it when it came out, and I devoured it. I just loved it so much, and I read the other books by Dan Brown that he had already came out because by that he'd already come out with two standalones, like the one I don't remember what the called. There was one set in the Arctic and one set someplace else, like two standalone books, and he also already had one Angels and Demons, another Robert Langdon book, which I really enjoyed. And then when the next book came out a few years after that, I enjoyed it. But then the fourth book of Robert Langdon came out, and I'm like, I'm a bit over this. But yeah, for a while, I was really, really into Dan Brown, as was everyone back in the days. Back in the days. Sounds like I'm like from the 1800s, but yeah, you get it. Blah 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 blah. Have I done something wrong now? No, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. There's something weird happened. Blah 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 blah. Anything more to talk about here? No, that. Yeah, I mean, here 89 Emma by Jane Austen. I actually tried when I was 17. I went to a library and got like a companion of all the Jane Austen books, or like all the official Jane Austen books. So Emma, Persuasion, Northanger Abbey, and Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice. They were like in one bind up in English. So I tried again from the library, and I kind of wanted to kind of read them because I've watched a lot of movies and I felt like, you know what, I'm gonna I was cut off because yeah issues. But yeah, I'm back. Yeah, so I got this big bind up of like the official Jane Austen books. Tried to read it when I was 17 in English. I gave it like a few pages and I just kind of and so like, oh, this was way too hard for me. I couldn't really do it. I kind of think I might still kind of want to do it, but like maybe read it in Norwegian. Though like we did actually talk a bit about Jane Austen in my library in science, like information science bachelor, and that was actually one time I kind of understand like, oh, so that's kind of the fuss is about because I don't know, like I just kind of got this new understanding of her authorship and her books. But I've always liked her movies, but like reading the books kind of been a bit intimidating for me. But yeah, I'm thinking I might read them. Though I suppose I mean I think most of them also like exist in abridged versions, but like, so I do want to read them? Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, Jane Austen, I have not finished any of her books. I also always like to watch the adaptations, but I never read any of her books. Yes, a book lover can say that. Blah de blah de blah. Let's see. Let's see. And then yeah, The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. So any of the Lord of the Rings books, I have never read them fully. Well, not any of them. I read Hobbit like 5 years ago. Yeah, 5 years ago. I read all that. I suppose one of the few reasons I finished it because, I mean, one, it's a kid's book, so it's not that difficult to finish, and two, it's like 80 pages, so yeah, it was fine to finish that one. But yeah, I didn't love it either, really. I mean, to me, I can't prefer the Hobbit book movie to the book, really. But like, yeah, The Lord of the Rings, I tried to read it once when I was like 12 something, I think. And I tried to read it again when I was 17. My foot was sprained, so I had to like stay still for a bit, and I tried to read it. And I just couldn't get past a few pages because it was just so many words. I mean, it's weird comment really, but like I just felt like it was like so many words and nothing happened really. I mean, stuff happens in a while, but yeah, it's kind of like one of those books. I feel like you either love it or you give it a real chance or it's not for you, and that one is not really for me. I don't really think I'll reread it or try again. So yeah. Blah 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 blah. Is there anything to talk about here? Gone with Wind is kind of interesting by Mark Mitchell. So I remember like I've always like had it like in the back of my mind and I always known about it. Like I remember having like Gone with the Wind like was in two bind ups. We had it in my cabin when I was young, but I never read it because just kind of never did. I suppose it's kind of one of the books I'm thinking I might read it sometime, but it's not like a book that I'll read tomorrow. But it's like, yeah, maybe I'll read. I mean, it could be interesting to read it, but it's not like a book that I am running to read. No. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. This one I have read, well, read and finished, but yeah, I haven't only started, but I also finished it. Read it a few years ago. So yeah, Dickens. He's also one of those authors where like he has all of his books, or most of his books, been adapted. Like they're also like he has so many classics, Oliver Twist, Black Game, but yeah, Oliver Twist, like Christmas Carol, etc., etc. And like often, at least before, there used to at least be once every few years, or like maybe one every year, where he had like either a movie or like a miniseries based on his book that came on TV, like during Christmas. I really love those. But like except Oliver Twist, which I'm sure I read, like I think both for school but also before school. Like not before school, like both in university but also before. But other than that, I have never read any Oliver Twist, Charles Dickens. I kind of wanted to read more by him a few years ago. And then I read Great Expectations. And I don't know. I didn't really feel it was all that great really. It's kind of for me. It's kind of just kind of meh, meh. I didn't really like it. Maybe it was all the subtext I didn't get, or maybe it was I don't know. But yeah, it didn't really live up to my expectations, or I don't know. It just yeah wasn't really my cup of tea. So I still kind of want to read a bit more from Charles Dickens. I mean, I went a bit prematurely, so I went and bought like a bind up of like many of his books in like one huge bind up. And I think it's kind of like a expensive edition, so I kind of suppose I have to try a bit more. But yeah, so far it's not really something I'm prioritizing really. Blah 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 blah. Let's see. Enjoy Lucky Club by Amy Tan. I've heard about it. Of course, it's kind of one of those books you've heard about. I've never read it. And I also heard like it's a great movie, but I haven't seen the movie either. I kind of want to read this book. It was kind of a fun book to read like once because it's on Rory's reading list, but also Asian Urban for Lane. And yeah, but I don't really have big thoughts around it. But yeah, blah blah blah. The Kite Runner. I read that also for school. Did I not? Yeah, I did it in high school, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. I kind of felt like it was too much rape, and like it ended on like a bittersweet tone. I don't know. I suppose for me, yes, of course, sometimes books end in bittersweet tones, but like I don't know. My idea is kind of like life often ends like kind of sad or kind of bad or like not perfect. So I kind of want my book to like end happy and ah ha 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 ha, or at least you're not happy go lucky, but at least like quite happy. And the Kite Runner, I mean, it's not like everyone's dead at the end of it, but it's not the opposite of that. So yeah. Let's see next. Blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. Life of Pi. Did I? Yes, I think I actually. Yeah, I read this book because a friend, well, acquaintance of mine, recommended it like 10 years ago. Time flies. She loved it so much, and I read it myself. And I don't know. I thought it was fine. I didn't like it all that much. Like, it didn't really leave an impression. I mean, I thought it was interesting enough. It wasn't like an awful book, but yeah, didn't really imprint on me. Really, I didn't really think that much about it. Really, and yeah, I mean, I also remember like there being like a big to do with a movie with this book. I don't really think I ever watched that one. Maybe I will. I mean, maybe it's a better movie than a book. Sometimes that happens, but yeah. Blah blah. And then we have The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. This was one of my favorite reads when I was young. When I was a child, my mom read it to me out loud all the time. I love the movies from 2000s. I actually love all three of them, not just the first one, which is like generally beloved, but like I loved all three of them. And yeah, I actually didn't like finish the series before I was 12 because things happened. But yeah, I really like that series. I have fond good memories of it. I mean, yeah, in hindsight, C.S. Lewis, not the most, I mean, he's not the most unproblematic author, but I suppose if you go far enough back, which author is not that many. But yeah, I suppose you could still like read his books because, I mean, it's not like if you read his book, he'll get some money from it. So, I mean, it's kind of different with problematic authors who are dead and problematic authors who are still alive and get your money when you buy it. So yeah. Blah 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 blah. Don't have any thoughts here. Oh, there. Not Abbey, which is kind of a little fun tidbit, really. But yeah, it is Not Abbey. It's one of Jane Austen's authors books. It was actually never translated to Norwegian before this year. Like all the other books exist in Norwegian and all languages, but Nothing Ever wasn't available in Norwegian before this year. She had adaptations of like the books, which I mean, of course, you had like tweet text in Norwegian in the TV and movies from there, but like there were no Fangor Abbey translated version. It was kind of interesting. And yeah, as I said, I haven't really read any Jane Austen books. I kind of want to read that one. Maybe read that one first. That could be interesting. And yeah, Of Mice and Men, I read for again. Was it for high school? Maybe for university. I read for school 1 year. I liked it. Didn't really love it. I suppose not that maybe not often really love books you read in school. I suppose it depends if you have to read it or not, what book it is, and all that. But yeah. Oh yeah. And also we read 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. That one I did not like at all. It was just way too weird for me. I mean, yes, it is it's a fantasy book. It's kind of like what's very famous in Latin America. It's kind of a what's the word again? Like weird fantasy. No, weird fantasy. There's a name for it. Literature fantasy. I can't remember it. But yeah, it's kind of like this semi-ish weird fantasy way. And yeah, for me, just kind of all the characters had the same names, and it just kind of things didn't happen, and they happened, and it just kind of just too confusing for me. I just didn't really, yeah, didn't like it really. Blah 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 blah. The perks of being a wallflower. I remember reading this in high school because like it was all the rage. I think the movies coming up and stuff. And I remember like thinking it was fine. I didn't really enjoy it that much. It was a fine book, in my opinion. It was nothing more than that. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't amazing in my mind. Anyway. Blah 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 blah. Yes, do I have anything more to say on any of these books? Really? Don't think I do. Blah 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 blah. Now I'm just watching at my phone, just looking for things to say. But yeah, I don't think I have that much more to mention or really talk about. I feel like. Well, I'm saying yes, I'm just kind of double checking. But yeah, come to stay first. Yeah, that's kind of like, I suppose that's kind of my fourth really. Fourths on the Rory Gilmore reading list. Some I kind of think I might read in future, and some not that interested in. And yeah, this became a bit of a long video, so I suppose watch this if you have patience, and if you think maybe you can have it in background. I suppose you can have it in background if you want. But yeah, and I'll see you soon. I suppose maybe you're curious about like how's my reading going for like this this readathon. Well, I finished this one yesterday. I loved it so much. Hollywood Heroine, as I kind of expected. I kind of really enjoyed it. And now I'm kind of thinking of reading one of these. So either Fat Chance Chaliwega by Crystal Maladando, Plot Twist by Bethany Turner, Alusha Mentality, or Luck of Titanic. And yeah, think of reading one of these. Not quite sure which one of these. I think I might read this one or this one. I think I'm simply gonna read the first chapter and then see. I might also like start read both of them. Like I have like as I do, I suppose as Rory does. Like I have one book in my bag, and then one book on my nightstand, and one book maybe I'll read in the living room. So yeah, always have more books on the go. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Bye.